Imagine soaring through the clouds, not in a Boeing 747, but in a machine described in texts thousands of years old. Sounds like science fiction, right? But what if I told you that ancient Indian scriptures, the Vedas, contain detailed descriptions of flying vehicles called Vimanas? Today, we're embarking on a journey to uncover one of history's most fascinating mysteries. Did our ancestors possess the secrets of flight millennia before the Wright brothers ever took to the skies? Let's dive in. The story begins with the Sanskrit epics, like the Ramayana and Mahabharata. These aren't just religious texts. They are vast chronicles of history, philosophy, and some believe, technology. Within these pages, we find vivid accounts of Vimanas. They're described as celestial chariots capable of flying through the air, into space, and even underwater. The Ramayana famously depicts the demon king Ravana kidnapping Sita and flying her back to his kingdom of Lanka in his Pushpaka Vimana, a massive ornate flying palace. But are these just poetic metaphors, or could they be blueprints for actual machines? This question takes us to a controversial text discovered in 1952, the Vaimanika Shastra. Purportedly written by the sage Bharadwaja, it's claimed to be a transcription of an even older text. This manuscript is an astonishingly detailed technical manual. It doesn't just talk about flying. It gets into the nitty-gritty. It discusses different types of Vimanas, like the Shakuna, Sundara, and Rukma Vimanas. It describes their construction, the metals required, and even the power sources. The text mentions 32 secrets of piloting a Vimana, covering everything from making the craft invisible to generating lightning-like forces. Let's get into the mechanics. The Vaimanika Shastra talks about propulsion systems that sound eerily advanced. One of the most debated concepts is the Mercury Vortex engine. The theory suggests that by heating mercury, a powerful vortex of ionized gas or plasma could be created. This swirling vortex would generate lift, allowing the Vimana to hover and fly. Some interpretations even suggest these engines used a combination of gyroscopes and mercury to create an anti-gravity effect. It sounds like something straight out of a modern physics lab, not a text with ancient roots. The text also dives deep into metallurgy. It specifies alloys that are supposedly light, strong, and heat-resistant, precisely what you'd need for an advanced aircraft. It talks about samaka, sound-alike, and other special metals describing their unique properties for absorbing heat and light. Modern scientists have attempted to recreate some of these alloys based on the descriptions, with mixed results. The challenge is that the ancient Sanskrit terms for materials don't always have a direct modern equivalent, leaving much open to interpretation. So what does modern science say about all this? Well, here's where the debate really heats up. Mainstream aeronautical engineers are skeptical. When researchers from the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore studied the Vaimanika Shastra, they concluded that the designs described were unfeasible. They argued that the proposed aerodynamics were flawed and that the machines, as described, simply couldn't generate enough lift to fly. They pointed out that the text's understanding of physics seems inconsistent with established principles. For example, the diagrams that accompany some versions of the text show bulky, ornate structures that look more like temples than aerodynamic vehicles. Critics argue these drawings were likely added much later and don't reflect the original text as intent. They also highlight the linguistic style of the Vaimanika Shastra, suggesting it was written in the early 20th century, not thousands of years ago. They believe it might be a fascinating work of imaginative fiction, a channeled text created by someone with a keen interest in both ancient lore and modern aviation. But the story doesn't end there. Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory see Vimanas as definitive proof of advanced extraterrestrial contact in our distant past. They argue that the knowledge to build these machines was a gift from sky gods. They point to the text's descriptions of pilot training, flight suits, and even specific diets for the crew as evidence that this was a real, functional technology. They believe the reason we can't replicate it is that we've lost the true understanding of the materials and energy sources involved. Let's look at the archaeological evidence, or rather, the lack of it. If these flying machines were real, where are they? Where are the factories, the launch pads, the wreckage? Skeptics correctly point out that there is no physical evidence of Vimanas ever having been built. There are no ancient hangars, no fossilized Mercury engines. All we have are texts. However, supporters have a counter-argument. They suggest these machines were built from materials that either degraded over millennia or were deliberately destroyed or hidden. Perhaps a cataclysmic event, like the great flood myths found in cultures worldwide, wiped the slate clean. Some theories even propose that Vimanas were not physical machines in the way we understand them today. Instead, they might have been consciousness-powered vehicles, operated through advanced meditative practices and mental energy, a concept that bridges science and spirituality. This idea connects to ancient Vedic concepts of siddhis, or supernatural powers achieved through spiritual discipline. Let's consider another angle, the cultural context. In ancient India, the line between myth and history was often blurred. Stories were used to convey profound truths, and gods often walked among mortals. Could the Vimana be a powerful symbol rather than a literal machine? A symbol of human aspiration, of the desire to transcend our earthly limitations and reach for the heavens. The idea of flight has always captivated the human imagination, and perhaps the Vimanas are the ultimate expression of that dream, encoded in the language of myth and poetry. But the technical details in texts like the Vaimanika Shastra are so specific that it's hard to dismiss them as pure fantasy. They describe navigation systems using the sun and stars, defensive mechanisms to jam enemy signals, and even weather-conquering technology. How could an ancient author, or even a 20th century one, imagine these concepts with such precision without some form of advanced knowledge? This brings us to the core of the mystery. We are faced with a fascinating paradox. On one hand, we have ancient texts filled with sophisticated engineering concepts that seem far ahead of their time. On the other hand, we have a complete lack of physical evidence and a scientific consensus that says the designs are unworkable. So how do we reconcile these two realities? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Maybe the Vimanas weren't physical aircraft in the modern sense, but were based on real, observable phenomena that ancient people interpreted through a technological lens. Or perhaps our understanding of ancient Sanskrit and the technologies described is incomplete. We might be trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, using modern physics to interpret a science that operated on entirely different principles. Think about it. Our entire scientific framework is based on a linear progression of knowledge. We learn to walk, then run, then build carts, then cars, then planes. The Vimana story challenges this linear timeline. It suggests that history might be cyclical, with advanced civilizations rising and falling, their knowledge lost and rediscovered over and over again. This is a radical idea, but it's one that resonates with many ancient traditions. So did ancient India have flying machines? We don't have a definitive answer. But the question itself forces us to look at history with a more open mind. It challenges us to accept that our ancestors may have been far more sophisticated than we give them credit for. The Vimana is more than just a mythological curiosity. It's a key that could unlock a completely different understanding of our past and our potential. Whether it was a metal ship powered by Mercury, a vehicle of consciousness, or a powerful poetic metaphor, the legend of the Vimana continues to fly high, inspiring wonder and debate to this day. What do you think? Were Vimanas real machines, elaborate myths, or something else entirely? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey through time and technology. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into history's greatest mysteries. Until next time, keep questioning everything.